Right, a very warm welcome, everybody. Today I have a special guest with me, all the way from New Zealand. Somebody who played 144 times for New Zealand. Let me repeat that, 144 times for New Zealand. His voice, his face is known throughout the world. He is the one and only Danny Morrison. A very warm welcome to you, Danny.
Hi, Saj, how are you?
I'm all good, yeah. How are you?
I'm visiting my mother. Nice intro about New Zealand, Aotearoa. I'm down in Thames, which is about 115, 120 Ks out of Auckland City, which has been being battered with all those storms last week. And there's supposed to be another one brewing off the coast in the islands. So lovely to be here. The sun's smiling at the moment down here in Thames, and I've been for a walk, Saj, so I should be feeling on top of the world, shouldn't I?
But soon you'll be heading off to Pakistan, Danny.
Yeah, look, what are we today? We're sort of the end of the working week here. I fly home Saturday and have to fly out the 12th on Sunday, and then arrive at the PSL on the Monday the 13th and start on the 14th. So she's all go as usual, Saj.
And you are part of the whole culture of the Pakistan Super League, Danny. Your commentary is almost evolved with the Pakistan Super League. You know, without you, the Pakistan Super League isn't quite the same.
Oh, that's nice of you to say that. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's sort of the dynamic of the subcontinent and all the other, even as you say, the four countries that have their own T20 franchise tournaments. And I've been involved pretty much with all of them, except Sri Lanka's, because they've had some issues, sadly, through that sort of 2012, 13 through to about the last couple of years. And then you had COVID. So, yeah, you're right. It's been great to evolve with the Pakistan Super League. And so when I look at all of that, and now we're PSL 8 and being involved from the start of it, has been quite a journey, quite a great experience, going from Dubai, the UAE, and now back in Pakistan itself on home turf, which is lovely for it.
And how do you, I mean, each of these T20 leagues has its own sort of niches, its own strengths and weaknesses. What do you think are the strong points of the Pakistan Super League, Danny?
Well, I think generally the pitches are pretty flat and true, and it slides on for attractive cricket. This might be a bit different because of how much cricket's been played, particularly in just two or three outlets in terms of, say, like Pindi, Karachi, and Lahore. They're going to be in Multan again, which is fabulous. So I think the strategy there is they slide on and they're good quick pitches because you've got such a conveyor belt of pace bowlers, and then you invite some world players that are either, whether they're batting, spinners, quick men, wicket keeper, all rounders, whatever. They really enjoy the contest because there are a lot of very talented and tasty, in my vernacular, tasty quick bowlers in Pakistan and the whole setup. And rightly so. It's been a great heritage of really good fast bowlers for a long time now. And then you throw in a lot of classy batting as well, Saj. And you've got that uniqueness that is Pakistan. In fact, the uniqueness that is Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, where wrist playing and timing and players that just, as some of my colleagues like to call it, the artistry of some of this batting, and it's not all about bashing sixes and fours. And you look at the likes of Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan, particularly at the top, where you can work the ball and manipulate it and play little reverse dabs. And so you've got a lot of these foreign players who do that as well now too. Yes, they're big sort of belting bullies, as we call them sometimes. They hit the ball big, but it's also a little bit about finesse too. So there's quite a complete package, is what I'm on about, Saj. Is that it's a good time of the year, that February into March. Still a bit cool, but also then starting to warm up a lot more as you get into late February, March. That lends itself to again different conditions as the tournament progresses.
Danny, I know you have to be neutral as a commentator, but which is your favourite PSL franchise? You must have a soft spot for one franchise.
Not overly. It's funny you should say that. It's the same with all the other franchises because you're right. I am a neutral. I'm a Kiwi first and foremost, but I, work in the subcontinent. I'll go to the Caribbean and do that franchise there, or what have you. And then sometimes in the UAE, there's different tournaments on. But really, yeah, it's hard to say. It's more about the characters you run into rather than the franchises for me. Whether it's been Chris Gale for a long period of time, seeing him, whether, catching up with Kane Williamson and talking about New Zealand or some of the other Kiwis. And then Bubba, he was at Karachi Kings and now he's on the move, moving to a different franchise. So when you look at it like that, Sudge, players move and change, as we know. It's a bit like having a job for a few years and then you move to a different part of the department, or have a complete career change. So you sort of have to be flexible like that as a player. But look, I quite like Karachi as a town, as a city, vibrant and full on. And then you go up to the north and you catch up with the guys from Quetta. Viv Richards has come as a mentor, legend status, to be involved with Quetta for a long time now. And so, there's sort of that real flavour of unique characters that come along and are involved in franchises. They often stay, and that's more the mentors that do. I mean, Dean Jones, whilst he was at Islamabad United, and God rest his soul, old Dino, then he had a stint with Karachi. So coaches too, they move about. So it's not so much about probably a favourite franchise such. It's more about the entertainment and some of the characters that are involved.
I mean, the schedule is jam-packed for the whole tournament, Danny. And away from the cricket, do you get much of a chance to see Pakistan away from the hotel rooms and away from the cricket stadiums? Do you get much of a chance to see the country?
Sadly, it's clearly with COVID, it's been very frustrating, and I think they're just grateful to get the tournaments up and running and having some actual play for a season. And when I look at it, Pakistan, occasionally, you might get it, but it's really only probably to someone's house to go to a function. That again, that's about the safety issue in the past. And I'm thinking of a while ago and a long period of time, but I think back to playing days, and no, there's not so much like getting on the back of the the jeeps, the open top jeeps with the big spotlights on, and the boys doing a bit of hunting for wild pigs or what have you. I remember doing that in Faisalabad with Chris Cairns and the like in '96, that World Cup. So there's not so much that to do. Any other controversy? My only piece of controversy with you, Sudge, is that I suppose in 2020, I caught up with the great Imran Khan, who was then Prime Minister, who's not now. But on that perspective, it was amazing to go to his property there in Islamabad and, go to the Prime Minister's office and residence there, and go with a couple of old cricket mates that I played alongside and against, obviously, and go and do that. So that's probably been the extent of it, to be fair, because as you just rightly mentioned, Sarge, that the tournament's so busy and jam-packed that you've got to get it done in a window frame on the calendar, because there's so many other tournaments. Like we've just said, just in recent 5 tournaments, if you count little old New Zealand's Super Smash, and no one talks about that because you've got the new IL and the UAE, you've had the finish of the Big Bash over sort of January and finishing now in early February. You've got the South African League, pumping on, and it's just constant, and the Bangladesh Premier League, which is coming to a conclusion as well. So you've got those 4 major franchises on, the little old one in New Zealand, the Super Smash, running alongside the women's Super Smash, and as I say, you've just had the Big Bash with some of the women play on that circuit. Now they've gone to the South African T20 World Cup. So really, when you look at it, is the calendar, is very congested. So there's not a lot of downtime, Sudge, to get out and explore and have some fun in that regard away from the game. And that's just part of the nature of the beast, really.
And you've been picking up on the local lingo as well, I noticed, Danny. A few Urdu and Punjabi words coming into your commentary. I heard you mention the word pagal recently as well. So you're obviously enhancing that language now as well.
Well, and a shot over cover with a bit of a bahura cha. I do like just little snippets there, and of course, in the subcontinent, it just adds a bit of the flavour, doesn't it, to the spice, which is great. and the cuisine. So when you throw all that mix in, I mean, I love the cuisine in the subcontinent, and trying different dishes. So we're spoiled in that regard, Such.
So which are your favorite dishes then on the cuisine, Danny?
Well, I do love meat. I love the way you procure your, like, particularly if it's mutton or goat, as a nice red meat in a more of a curried style meal. But then again, Pakistan very renowned more of kebabs and like in a more of a barbecue situation, where it's not perhaps so much sauce involved. But I am a bit of a sucker, or not so much a sucker, a lover and passionate of the masala dosa. And I think the rice flour for me, with dosa, is easier on the digestion as we sort of move into a different realm of our age, Sarge, as we get a little older. So for me, yeah, and the spices with the samba, dipping in the rice flour dosa with a bit of aloo, and away you go. And so that's a go-to for me at breakfast. I find that a superb way to start the day with a nice black coffee with a little bit of honey in it to help the throat. And then, of course, things like, whether they're biryanis or different names of those spiced, rice dishes with the lovely dips, and everything that with your different coconut chutneys and stuff and vegetable chutneys and spices. Yeah, very spoiled and thoroughly enjoy it.
In Pakistan, you mentioned that Karachi is one of your favorite places. Is Karachi your favorite city to visit in Pakistan, Danny?
Well, I suppose in terms of ease of getting in, you fly in a lovely, coastal city. I've had a bit of fun there in the past, without name dropping too much. You catch up with the two W's, Wazim and Waka. Waka, of course, married to an Australian woman. So, in terms of seeing Shanera and that, we catch up, and he puts on a function, or used to be able to put on a function pre-COVID, and we'd catch up and have a dinner. And that was a real highlight with two of the three of the franchises coming along, because he's involved with the Karachi Kings as a coach mentor scenario. And so that was always lovely to get out. And when you particularly know someone and you played against and what have you, to catch up and see some of the other coaches and the Western faces at Wazim's property, to catch up with him is lovely. And of course, you're on the coast, and so there's other friends, extended friends that you can go with occasionally, and might go for just a little bit of a drive by the water, Clifton there, and pop along and get just to get away from that hotel environment, Sage, to get out and because New Zealanders or Australians living by the coast, we tend to see the water, and it's such a big part of who we are. And having grown up in Auckland on the two coasts, east and west, it's very small there, but there's a lot of water. So I find that I need to get out and see the ocean, and it's lovely to do and feel that salt air and what have you. So we've been, from that perspective, Karachi holds a lot of fun in terms of getting away from the hotels. But then again, Lahore, you catch up with some other old players, and Amir Sahal's always been a great host. And you go around for a meal. And then in Islamabad, Buzzard Khan, and they invite you up there and go around to his dad's house, Margie's house, and catch up and have a meal. And it's just lovely to be able to do. So from that regard, getting out and about is superb, really.
Coming to PSL 8 now, Danny, who are the players that you're most looking forward to watch this time?
I mean, there's always the usual suspects. You mentioned, the likes of Bubba, and he's on the move, of course, it's a different franchise. And then Mohammed Rizwan is one heck of a character. And then you got all the paces. Shaheen Shardafri just got married, didn't he? There's a few boys getting married just to the start of this PSL. I think Shadi Khan as well. So you look at that, and those guys are obviously in quite a good headspace and happy, obviously. But I think for Shaheen Shardafri, coming back from major injury layoff, time out, and so he's had a few niggles. He's just played so much cricket, the big fella. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he's bouncing back. And of course, all the different paces from around the world that are playing and coming and getting another opportunity. But I think from the homegrown talent, there's always interest to see how the test players are playing, or maybe the more the white ball specialist guys. Given there is the 50 over World Cup, And without getting into too much to the politics, it'll be fascinating to see how I think that unfolds, because of your brotherhood next door, where the World Cup is being held. Not getting too much off the beaten track of PSL, but white ball cricket, and there's so much of it. I just think it'll be fascinating to see how the local Pakistani star players go, leading into different cricket coming up. They've got New Zealand coming, haven't they? New Zealand come after the PSL, so there's always a little bit to look forward to. But you also then can't get too carried away with what's present and being in the present, which of course is the Pakistan Super League, which starts next week. And those guys have got to be all over that for their franchises, for their own performances, and for their own sort of well-being, to be picked again for Pakistan's next commitment, those big commitments in April.
And finally, Danny, the all-important question: who do you think will win PSL 8? It's always very difficult to predict what will happen in these T20 competitions, but you'll have looked at the squads, who they've retained, who they've brought in. Who is that standout team, do you think, that could win it?
Yeah, it's difficult. As you rightly say, I think that's the beauty of this tournament. You know, it really is. And franchise, it's got a bit more even, I think, with the draft system and either retaining, you know, your key players that you want to. That's great. But there is the bit of movement going on. And there's a bit of stuff that's gone on recently, such with some of those big name older guys, particularly the West Indian guys, have moved on. They've finished or are about to finish, and you can see they're in the twilight of their careers, and maybe they're not quite the match winners they used to be. And so, you know, you've got those guys floating always about. I know Lahore, God, you know, you think of the start of this tournament, they've been the cellar dwellers, and then, you know, getting into a final and sort of not quite getting there, and then getting there, and then thinking, wow, you know, can Lahore get up and do something outrageous? And go all the way. I mean, you're going about the two big cities, Karachi and Lahore, but you can't forget about Quetta and their involvement, who they're about, and Peshawar. And I'm excited for Multan, that city hosting it there. It is fascinating. But to come back to the core of your question, who do I think? As I say, very difficult to say. I'd probably like Quetta to win it, only because I'm a bit sentimental for Viv Richards. And I know Viv probably hasn't got long to keep coming back to this wonderful tournament. So it'd be nice for Viv and the gang there to have something to sort of crow about and have a bit of fun on.
Well, Danny, thank you very much for your time. Have a great time in Pakistan, and I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to listening to your commentary and enjoying the Pakistan Super League.
Thank you so much, Saj.